Hello, and welcome to the Pittsburgh City Council Standing Committee's meeting for Wednesday, December 11th, 2019. My name is Chris Dotson, and with us today is Connor Letzenberger, our sign language interpreter. Due to the length of today's agenda, please go to the Legislative Information Center via the City Council website to read the bills that are up for preliminary vote. You can find the link in the business drop-down on the city's pittsburghpa.gov website. Click the Legislative Information Center. From there, click the red launch button. This will take you to the council meeting calendar. Find the meeting for today's date and click on the agenda. The meeting agenda should open with all the bills for discussion today. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Good morning and welcome to Pittsburgh City Council Standing Committee meeting of Wednesday, December 11th, 2019. Our first order of business is public comment. Members of the public who want to address City Council, please come forward. You'll be given 3 minutes. The green light means to start at 3 minutes. The yellow light means 1 minute to summarize. The red light means your time has expired. I'd like to remind everyone that the rules of council state that comments limit to matters of concern, official action, or deliberation which are or may be before council. Profanity will not be permitted, and order will be maintained at all times. First speaker, please. First speaker, perhaps only speaker, please.
Dr. Ronald N. Miller, Lawrenceville and Bloomfield, Global Intelligence Society candidate for President 2020. I'm the author of GenSex Identity Formation, and I invite people to review. I pay for review before publication this year. My public comment has to do with this, and also will be part of my book. I'm going to use some language from GenSex studies, so American Sociological Association and American Anthropological Association information. My public comment is a tale of two queens that I think are dealing with the city government as if it is their dominion. Concern of this council is control of city council. An impeachable offense is mayoral interference with the office of the president of council. An impeachable offense is also councilor collusion with mayoral interference with the office president of council. The former applies, in my view, to Mr. Peduto at a probability of 0.8.95, and the latter to District 7, Ms. Gross, a probability of 0.7 to 0.9. If the mayor is impeached, and the Home Rule Charter says we can get started with 20 citizens, guess who becomes mayor? It is the president of council. Citizens, are you ready for Mayor Kraus? Ms. Gross mirrors Mr. Peduto. Ms. Gross's public pillars, her word, mirror Mr. Peduto's public projections. The anti-carbon Ms. Gross position mirrors the anti-carbon, anti-Allegheny County position of Mr. Peduto. The no focus on the integrity of the vote, inviolability of free speech and public comment by Ms. Gross mirrors Mr. Peduto's out-of-focus depictions of vote security and public comment sanctity. Ms. Gross mimics, in my view, Mr. Peduto. Hear her here say or parrot Mr. Peduto's yes and no, what's wrong for you is right for me speech. Ms. Gross's public positions reassemble Mr. Peduto's posts. Does she agree with all of his positions? Is she the political disciple of Mr. Peduto's love all yins prophet of Pittsburgh? Is she Mr. Peduto's queen? A sub to Peduto's GenSex political tiara Dawn. This ongoing tale of two femme men, one female, the other male, is exerting undue pressure on the office of President of Council. I think it is abuse of power, and impeachable.
Okay. Next speaker, please. Okay, I'm required to say it twice. Next speaker, please. Seeing no other speaker, let's go on to the roll call. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Coghill.
Here.
Mrs. Gross.
Here.
Mrs. Harris.
Here.
President Cross. Mr. Lavelle. Mr. O'Connor. Mrs. Kell Smith. Mrs. Strasburger.
Here.
Reverend Burgess.
Here.
8 members present.
Thank you very much. We have a long agenda. Let's go through it expeditially. We have a supplemental paper.
Bill 2381, resolution authorizing pursuant to Chapter 210 of the City Code, the mayor and director of the Office of Management and Budget to accept a donation from the Heinz Endowment, $10,000, to assist the city and the office of the mayor with membership to the Gun Safety Consortium.
Need a motion? Need a second? Conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2382, resolution providing for agreement with Neighborhood Allies for the purpose of providing neighborhood and community development services and providing for the payment of a cost not to exceed $140,000.
Need a motion? Need a second? Conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2383, ordinance amending and supplementing the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances, Title I, Administration, Article 11, Human Resources, Chapter 192, Pension, Municipal Benefit Plan Number 2, Section 19226, Pension Allowance, by adding 19226P, eliminating the Social Security offset for non-union employee members who are elected officials.
Need a motion to hold 1 week.
Motion to hold 1 week.
Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2389, resolution further amending and supplementing Resolution Number 855 by transferring the remaining of $162,694.25 from the completed Beechwood Boulevard, Browns Hill Road project to the Bob O'Connor Golf Clubhouse.
Need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2396, resolution further amending and supplementing Resolution Number 855 by transferring a total of $33,372.46 within District 1 neighborhood needs to Allegheny West, $5,000, Historic Dogetown Development Corporation, $10,000, Northside Leadership Conference, $12,000, Spring Hill Civic League, $5,500, and Public Safety AEDs, $872.46.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Second. Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Next bill, please.
Bill 2397, resolution further amending Resolution 549 by transferring $33,372.46 remaining within District 1 neighborhood needs to new projects and renaming existing projects.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2400, resolution further amending Resolution Number 797 in order to transfer $250,000 from council community funds to the URA's microfinance program.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Read the next 3 bills together.
Bill 2213, resolution establishing the City of Pittsburgh All-In Cities Leadership Forum. Bill number 2214, resolution recognizing racism as a public health crisis. Bill number 2215, resolution establishing the All-In Cities Investment Fund.
Motion to,
The next 3. Read the 3.
Yes.
You read all 3 of them? I'm sorry. I need a motion.
motion to approve.
Need a second? Mr. Lavelle?
Brief conversation. I think we should vote these through today. I do plan on bringing forward some amendments to the bills for Tuesday, based upon the testimony that those who came to the post agenda as well as came to the public hearing, where they wanted some additional language added. So I'll have that ready for Tuesday.
Any other conversation? I would say one thing, and first of all, I want to thank members who participated, those who came to public hearing, post-agenda, those who watched online, and those who just privately gave me the assurances. I will say this, and this is what I think the significance of these bills are. If we continue to do the same thing that we've always done, this problem will be exactly the same that it is today. It will not change. It will get worse, actually. That means moving forward, we have to have this conversation in everything we do. every action we do, we have to ask the question, how does this promote diversity and equity in our city? And if it doesn't, perhaps we should do something different. The reason that the Rooney Rule was so spectacular was it allowed the Steelers to do something transformational. Bringing Coach Tomlin into the Steelers changed the culture of sports in the United States. It changed. It was a fundamental change, and it echoed from assistant coaches to front offices to other sports. And so in every decision, we have to have that conversation. And if we have that conversation, I believe, because I have confidence in my city, I have confidence in this council, I have confidence that we will normally make the best decision. It's just oftentimes we don't have the conversation. And now this legislation signals it's time to have the conversation. With that,
So if I may, I've been on the council 12 years, and I have sat through any number of public hearings and post agendas, and never in the 12 years that I've spent here have I been graced by a more enlightened or informed or articulate or passionate group of people to come in and educate and enlighten this council than what I saw at that at that post agenda.
thank you very much. With that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2225, resolution transferring the amount of $150,000 from the Office of Management and Budget's operating budget to the Workforce Development Fund, budget year 2019.
A motion to approve.
Need a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. All right, so we have the budget bills. We're going to read the budget bills together. Then, as part of the budget bills, we will make our amendments. After that, we will go into the tax bills and keep on with the agenda. And so, is Mr. Bannock somewhere in the house? Yes. All right, I'm going to need you at the table, Bill. And so we will read the three bills together, correct? Madam Clerk.
Bill 2263, resolution making appropriations to pay the expenses of conducting the public business of the city and for meeting the debt charges thereof for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2020. Bill number 2264, resolution adopting and approving the 2020 capital budget and the 2020 CDBG program and the 2020 through 2025 capital improvement program. Bill number 2265, resolution fixing the number of officers and employees of the city for the 2020 fiscal year and the rate of compensation thereof, and setting maximum levels for designated positions.
Thank you very much. Council, you have a packet of amendments. The front cover tells you what those amendments are. We will take them one by one.
Motion to approve.
I'm sorry, need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second with discussion? Need a second? Second, okay. These bills are now open. Let's go through the amendments. Mr. Bannock.
Sure. Bill Urbanic, City Council Budget Director. Good morning, all. The first amendment of today is actually operating amendment number 4. As you know, the budget's already been amended via the line item vote that we had on Monday. The first amendment, number 4, is a $10,000 increase to council staff. And you can see the outline of how that money is separated. Total change is $102,000 for the 2020 budget. Next amendment is...
Let's do one at a time. Need a motion? Motion to approve.
Motion to amend.
Motion to amend. Thank you. Need a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please. Next amendment,
The
please.
next amendment is operating amendment number 5. It's under clerk construction. This was in the 2019 budget. It is now being pushed over to the 2020 budget. I believe there's a bill on the table today to encumber the funds for next year. This simply decreases the clerk's estimate in order to pay for it in the amount of $85,000. That estimate of the expenditures for the total 2019 budget.
Need a motion to amend?
Motion to amend.
Need a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
The next is capital amendment number 6. This restoring funding for war memorials. There's no change to the budget. This is simply a title change being offered by Councilwoman Harris. It dedicates the funds specifically to war memorials by eliminating the words public art.
Need a motion?
Motion to amend.
Need a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
The next is capital amendment number 7. And what it does is it restores the hunger organizations that we fund on an annual basis. They were not funded in this year's mayor's budget proposal. It restores the funding to $220,000 of community development block grant funds. It does that through a reduction of $85,000 from the Neighborhood Initiatives Fund from the URA. It also, City Council also reduces its amount that it gets on an annual basis of unspecified local options to $60,000. It's broken down in this manner. Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank will receive $100,000 in this proposal. Pittsburgh Community Services Hunger, $100,000. Pittsburgh Community Services Safety, $15,000. Victims Center for Victims and the Mediation Center, $2,500. Pittsburgh Action Against Rape, $2,500. There is no change to the budget as a result of these
Also,
amendments.
Bill, if you tell, well, for discussion, give me a motion, I need a motion to amend.
Motion to amend.
Need a
discussion.
second? So we discuss, if you would explain to them how the mayor has reduced his ULO over the last couple of years.
Yes, there is a significant reduction in this year's budget from the mayor's office. While council was receiving $675,000 in unspecified local options, the mayor has reduced to $175,000. That number used to be equal when Mayor Peduto first came in. Each council and the mayor would split that amount. That has been significantly reduced on an annual basis, all the way down to the $175,000 the mayor's receiving this year. And most of the time, we would split the amount of money that would go into the community services and hunger services. This year, it's more or less on council to do that.
So basically, we're reducing our ULO a little bit so that we can fund these hunger organizations that actually, most of them depend upon this money for their work. There's a motion to amend on the table, conversation. Ms. Smith?
Just briefly, I love that we fund the hunger organizations. I want more accountability, because I have seen, and I mentioned this the other day, a lot of organizations that get the funding and they receive the produce and they receive the food, and yet they'll put a post up and just anybody comes and gets it, not necessarily based on need, but just on want. And I think that, I want to make sure these dollars are going to people that actually really need it. And as best as we can, I'd like to have some more accountability with it.
Any other conversation? No other conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay.
Thank you all very much.
Next amendment, please.
Next amendment is Capital Amendment 8. It's to increase demolition by $400,000. And it's under the line item remediation of condemned buildings, city-owned property, in the amount of $400,000. There's a reduction in bituminous paving of $100,000. Also, in order to convert some of the bond money to CDBG funds, since we cannot use bond money for the use of demolition, there is some changes in Homewood Park construction, but they net out even, so there's no change to that specific project.
Need a motion?
Motion to amend.
Need a second?
Second.
Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next amendment, please.
Capital Amendment number 9 is to increase funding to the URA by $900,000, presented by Councilman Lavelle.
Anybody talk about this?
In order to do this, street resurfacing is once again used in the amount of $900,000. And this increases line items in the URA: owner-occupied housing rehabilitation by $300,000 to $780,000, workforce for sale housing by $300,000 to $900,000, workforce rental housing from $600,000 to $900,000. And then there was the conversions we have here, which net zero for the projects that are listed in this amendment.
Need a motion?
Motion to amend.
Need a second?
Second.
Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
The next one is operating amendment number 6, one that was both suggested by council and by the administration, actually came over from the administration, and it's to add one gender equity commission executive director, which is now part-time, to a full-time position. So it eliminates the part-time position and adds the full-time position. And the total cost for 2020 is $25,935.
Need a motion?
Have to.
Need a second? Any conversation? I want to thank Councilwoman Gross for her advocacy on this issue. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
The operating amendment number 7 is just a technical correction. It moves over monies that were dedicated for GIS that we had switched departments from planning to Department of Innovation and Performance. So it was monies that the administration had forgotten, and we forgot in the budget. So this just corrects that piece by putting the monies from one place to the other, one department to the other.
Need a motion?
Motion to amend.
I need
Second.
a second. Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. This then eliminates the amendments that we have prepared ahead of time. I do want to, as we go back to the original bills, I want to suggest something to council. We have erred on the side of caution this year because we know that police arbitration is in midst. They will come to us. We will have no say-so on those numbers. Those numbers will change our budget significantly, though after that budget is changed, we will have time because the operating budget, well, the capital budget is always open. The administrative budget, the operating budget closes February?
End of the first week of February, and it can be opened all
It can be
year
open,
round
but
with an
naturally open.
agreement.
My point is, we have a month or so that's already open, hopefully after we get the settlement to revisit some items. That's why we have cited on the cautionary. That's why you've not seen a lot of things in this preliminary. After we get the final numbers, we get the final budget, council can have another conversation about the necessity of other allocations. And so I don't want you to think this is the end. It is not. We are just, and I'm saying this for the public, this council has been extremely responsible and knowing our position. And I want to thank all of council. I also want to thank the budget director who's in the audience. I also want to thank Chief Gilman for this process of negotiating out these amendments and negotiating out a budget. I think it has been effective. I want to thank President Krause for his leadership and allowing me to lead in this task. I think it has been extremely efficient. I think we are being responsible. I think we go into our new year as a very healthy city and opportunity to do great things. With that, I will recognize Councilwoman Smith.
Thank you, and I want to thank you, Reverend Burgess, for chairing the meetings and reminding us to be responsible sometimes when we had our challenges. But I think that all of us have been really holding each other accountable,
Yep.
And so I think that that's been really, really helpful. But I really want to thank the mayor's office, his finance folks, and our budget office, council's budget office. But I want to thank the clerk's office and the camera folks and the sergeant at arms, because people don't realize how many more meetings they have to cover during this budget process. And so I just want to thank them all for all the work they do in keeping us all on track. But Reverend, thank you for being an absolute great finance chair.
Thank you very
during
much.
this time.
Any other conversation? No conversation. We have
I
three.
just want to register an IVO for the votes I missed one.
All right, we have three bills on the table. All those budget bills on the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposers, nay. That takes us to the tax bills. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bills. You can read them together.
Bill 2276, ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code at Title II, Fiscal Article 7, business-related tax, earned income tax, declaration and payment of tax at subsection D, so as to fix the rate of interest on delinquent earned income tax for the year 2020. Bill number 2277, ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code at Title II, Fiscal Article 7, business-related taxes, home rule tax, declaration and payment of tax at subsection D, so as to fix the rate of interest on delinquent home rule tax for the year 2020. Bill number 2278, ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code at Title II, Fiscal Article 9, property taxes, real property tax and exemptions, payment options, discount and delinquency penalty, so as to set the payment, discount, and delinquent dates for the 2020 fiscal year. Bill number 2279, ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code at Title II, Fiscal Article 9, property taxes, real property tax and exemption, levy and rates on lands and buildings by fixing the rate of taxation for 2020. Bill number 2281, Resolution authorizing the fee schedule for 2020 pursuant to Chapter 170 of the City Code.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second. Any conversation? Ms. Harris?
Do we have to pass the fee
Yes,
schedule
there's
today?
nothing in here on the parks. Everything is stayed the same. All taxes are the same.
There
we could
isn't,
hold
yes,
the
there
fee
isn't, there is, as far as I, yes, the park tax is not in this package.
Yes, that's correct. The park tax is not, has not been formulated yet. The trust fund hasn't been made. Those
Okay.
things have not happened
Okay.
yet. And there are no new tax increases. This is an annual thing. We need to set these taxes, so no new
Okay.
taxes.
I mean, I know
City of
the
Pittsburgh.
public is concerned on this, so I wanted to make sure that it wasn't in any. Thank you very much.
Any other conversation? No conversation?
yes.
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
Ms. Smith?
Thank you. I just wonder if we could hold the fee schedule just separately today, because we did get some information. I haven't had a chance to go over it. I really want to go over it, because we did get a lot of complaints last time.
Well, we can, my advice is to pass it through, and if you're not satisfied, recommit it on Tuesday.
Why not just hold it?
I think you want to do them together. Did you want to
Do
do?
we?
Yeah, we'd like to,
You'd like to. That doesn't mean
Well,
we have to.
the,
So, I'd really like to hold it for a week.
if I may just say that we want to have the fee schedule printed with the budget book
I
as
know,
well,
but you're
too,
going to print it before
just
it's
so you-
final. Or you're going to, you're going to wait
No.
until we,
Not until it's final, no.
I'm going to find out, because last time I think they printed them before we had the final vote. So I just want to make sure.
They're all connected. The fee schedule is connected to the budget. It's all like sort of one thing.
Right.
And so
Okay.
but I will.
Okay, but I'm going to recommit it if I don't
I'll-
like it, because
if you
last
don't
year we
like
got
it-
a lot of complaints, and I want to make sure
If you
that
do
we're
not-
not
if you-
nickel and diming our residents to death. So,
If you do not like it, you already have my vote for the recommittal.
thank you.
All right?
Thank you, thank
All
you.
right? The finance bills, the tax bills, and the fee studies are on the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2331, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in the amount of $16,000 in
Thank
favor
you.
of Robert Aldridge and his attorney in full and final settlement of a litigation filed in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania.
Need a motion?
Motion
Hold
to
for
approve.
executive session.
It
Oh,
was already
held
this
already.
is one week.
It was held.
This one,
This was held already
Okay, motion
no,
to
no,
approve.
no. It says.
It was held
executive
yesterday.
session Scheduled.
yesterday, the 10th, yesterday.
Yes, that's the one I thought it was.
I need a different motion. I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2355, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Office of Management and Budget to execute relevant agreements to receive grant funding from Living Cities to support the city's work with the city's Accelerator Retake, inclusive procurement cohort, and further providing for an agreement and expenditures not to exceed $50,000.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2356, resolution authorizing 82 open-end professional services agreement with multiple vendors to provide professional services in 12 categories of work on an on-call basis as required related to the assessment, design, construction, and maintenance of the city's infrastructure, buildings, and lands as needed by various departments of the city, each agreement being at an amount not to exceed $2,500,000 annually for a 2-year term, up to 2 additional 1-year options, and providing for the funding of the cost thereof.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Any conversation? Ms. Strasburg?
I'd like to hear more about this.
Okay. Someone here from the administration, please come forward.
Morning.
Jennifer Olzinger, Assistant Director of Office Management Budget, Procurement Manager for the city.
Chris Hornstein, Assistant Director of Public Works for Bureau of Facilities.
Dan Tobin, Sourcing Specialist, OMB.
Corinne Ricks, Director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure.
So probably about a year ago, council approved new legislation that was written with law, OMB, DPW, DOMI, and some other key stakeholders to be able to enter into a new type of on-call open-end agreements similar to the state's structure. After that legislation was approved, we began the process of doing the first of those solicitations for these on-call professional services as needed. We spent several months writing it to make sure we had very good qualifications outlined for all of the different types of services that we've been needing. This actually goes along with the piece of legislation after it. There are actually two sizes of contracts that is allowed through legislation and code for these types of services. There is what we call a small bucket, that's individual scopes of work of $100,000 or less. And then there is what we're calling a medium bucket, individual scopes of work of $100,000 or more, but not to exceed $750,000. If there is an individual project, which we don't believe that there would be, but if there is an individual design project or engineering project that is more than $750,000, these contracts would not be allowed to be used. They would have to go out on the street for public bid. So the structure of these is very similar to the current pre-qualified contracts that we have for non-professional services such as plumbing, heating. So they will follow the same process as that for bidding to the people on the groups as is outlined in code. So we got 99 different vendors that responded to this massive solicitation, over 30 categories of work. The different departments can kind of speak to some of those categories of work and what these projects will entail. But this is to be used for projects that you have already or will be approving in the budget. So this is not anything new that it wouldn't be budgeted. This would be for pre-budgeted work. So this is anything from structural engineers, from our bridges, stormwater management, any kind of, if we need somebody for a landslide and she needs to call a geotech specialist, we're going to have a list of on-call things so that we can address these things in a much faster pace, because we're still going to go through an evaluation of which one of these pre-qualified suppliers would be best for the particular line of work, but we've already got their insurance, they've agreed to our terms and things like that. Any individual project over $50,000 will get reviewed on a case-by-case basis by the EORC as well, so they will be going through that process. Chuck is here to speak to any of that if you guys have any questions on the EORC end. But that's the 30-second high level, and we can answer any specific questions that you guys may have.
Thank you. From a government bureaucracy standpoint, I'm in favor of this because I understand that emergencies or even non-emergencies come up and we don't want to have to go through a bureaucratic process every single time. My only concern is the EORC process, actually. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how we're dealing with that.
Sure. What we have met several times with the EORC staff, Assistant Director Scalaking, Assistant Director Chris Hornstein, Dan and I worked with the staff and also Chuck Durham, and we have a very good process that we think everybody is comfortable with. It follows basically the same as our current pre-qualified process. Our current pre-qualified vendors, again, for those non-professional services, any individual project as per code for those over $250,000 also has to go through EORC. Because they're a professional service, we will be going back to that $50,000 number for their review on a project-by-project basis. So while we're assigning contracts to roughly 70 vendors in each and over 30 categories, one vendor may have one or two, another vendor may have 3 or 4 of different ones. We will be submitting those on a case-by-case basis as these projects arise. So example that we did this year, we did an RFP to design the CCB bathroom remodel. We would just go to the list now and get quotes from the people on that list to pick the design. So then they were already under contract. So we're putting a lot of funding into facilities, a lot of funding into our infrastructures and roads. And these departments are under a big time constraint to, get these deliverables done. So anything that we can do to make that a more efficient process while also being compliant and making sure that we're hitting our numbers with EORC and allowing them to review those individual projects on a case-by-case basis when and if they arise and are assigned. So they will be reviewing them as they arrive and approving those or asking people to come back, just like they do now.
And when they review them on a case-by-case basis, are they getting numbers, real numbers, or are they getting percentages?
No, they are getting real numbers. for the specific project.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Each of these vendors were required to submit a list of subcontractors that they would use when and if they are assigned work. But then, once they get an actual project, they can really tie in the specific numbers to that project and define, if they have 5 subcontractors, they might use 2 on a
Okay.
particular scope of work.
Thank you very much.
Councilwoman Smith.
So I actually have a lot of questions, even though I just heard a lot of answers, and I do understand the need for this because so many times projects come up and the process just takes so long. But, I mean, honestly, listening to it sounds somehow like it's somewhat circumventing council and unions and other things. So tell me, what's the criteria to become a vendor?
So we did a very big RFP process. There was very specific qualifications in each category of work that they spent several months developing, and each of the departments reviewed all of those qualifications. We made sure that, obviously they had all the insurance and checks and things like that we normally do, and then we looked at their project references. They had to give examples of projects and different things in all of their areas of work in each of the departments, as well as some folks from planning and PLI. So OMB is sponsoring the legislation because these are for use citywide, but DPW and DOMI are here because they were really the key people to describe it. I don't know if you guys want to talk more about how you developed, the criteria and qualified.
I want to know, was there
Oh,
any
sure.
part of the criteria that included union employees or
Well, these
City
are
of
pro-
Pittsburgh
these
businesses
are
or
actual
individuals?
Sure, these are consultants and professional services, so
Yeah.
I don't know that any of them would have union people, but it's on all of our professional services and everything.
And you did mention plumbers? On that?
No, that's on our current list.
Okay.
For construction and
For
non-professional services. These are strictly professional
I'll
services.
just tell you, I'm going to
Consultants,
abstain
engineers,
today.
architects.
I'd really like a list of the criteria and some of the things, guidelines that you followed.
Sure, and then Dan has a few, if anybody
And
wants
were
to take a
unions
look.
consulted in this process?
There are no laborers in any of this work. This is not union work. This is architects and engineers and stuff like that. This isn't the actual construction work.
Okay.
This is just design.
Okay. But sometimes those people don't use union people when they do jobs, because I know that they gave me a list of people that they like to work with before. So
Right,
I'd just like to see that.
I don't know that any of these consultants would ever use any sort of laborers or anything. They're just giving us a
No,
design.
they
They're
weren't, it wasn't just for laborers. So I'd just like to see the list of criteria.
Sure. Dan, this is a list of all of the different categories, and the second page is a list of all of the firms. If you look below, we're awarding 126 contracts to small businesses.
And we have none of this work in-house. We have none of these people that could do this work in-house.
Designers and architects and stormwater management and geotechnical engineers, no, we do not.
Okay, so I know we used to, because Councilwoman Harris just mentioned. Is it because the pay is the work? I mean, what is it?
Staffing
Why are we having a difficult time?
Yeah, staffing levels.
Because I see some of these jobs posted sometimes. I haven't seen it recently, but.
Karina Rex, the Director of Mobility Infrastructure. We do have, obviously, we have a number of engineers on staff with us, but the volume of work that we have to do to, for example, design a retaining wall for one of our slide events that we've had actually takes a tremendous amount of different staff members. So they need to do AutoCAD designs, they need to do geotechnical borings, they need to do different kinds of material testing and engineering designs. We don't have so there may be more than a dozen different disciplines that are involved in simply doing that one engineering design. We have staff that can review and quality check and confirm those designs that are done, but we don't have the number of staff to actually both propagate those designs, oversee the designs, project manage the financing of the delivery. So we really take the project management role in the city and the quality assurance and quality control in the city, but we do contract out actual design work to a significant extent.
Okay, so I'm going to abstain today. I have some concerns about this, but I mean, overall, it sounds good that we have the contractors, like the B contractor, but I'd like to abstain today till I get a little bit more information and a little bit more comfortable with this, even the idea of circumventing council to do this. So, thank you.
Councilman Cross.
Good morning. There's a lot of information to digest here.
Yeah.
A lot. And I'd like to talk just a little bit more around the finances of it and the dollar cutoffs by which we will assign the different contracts. I understand fully and in complete agreement that this helps us to build better capacity. We become the project managers. We oversee professionals that can bring information to us. Full agreement. But talk to me a little bit more about the finances of this. It sounds to me like it's almost like RP cards. Am I misinterpreting this as though something is given permission to be spent and then comes to council later for approval? That's where I'm confused.
No, these will be awarded similar to our current, if somebody's using one of our line item contracts for, like I said, like a little plumbing job or something like that, and if they're using capital funds, it's things that are already budgeted, and Chris would write a letter of authorization, goes to the controller, it gets encumbered as it does today, it gets checked by the capital team to make sure that, yes, this was something in the capital budget, and that's all checked and done before any work is awarded.
These are funds that are awarded through the capital budget process. That is how they pass through the council for the initial approval.
Correct.
Yours is to award pre-approved vendors the right to do these kinds of work that we have already approved funding for.
Correct.
Did I say that
It
right?
could be some operating money as well, but I would say 90% of this would be capital. So it would follow.
Can we just talk a little bit later today about this? I'll vote today, but I just want to clear my head a little better. Okay? All right, thank you.
Councilman Rose.
Thank you. So
I'm sorry.
I want to touch upon several of the lines of questioning that other members have taken. We know that when we have to go out to, for a big project, and we send it out to an RFP, it's a very big proposal to write. So we know that a lot of our smaller and mid-sized firms, many of whom are the women-owned businesses or the minority-owned businesses, are not able to respond very quickly because they don't have staff dedicated full-time to responding to like big government proposals. And so we've learned at the authorities, at PwC especially, that doing this kind of RFQing, allowing a chance for the firm to respond and have a not rushed conversation, exploring what they have capacity for, what they don't have capacity for, and then doing this kind of pre-qualification allows us then to, when a project does come up, because a lot of times it's emergencies, right? A landslide needs to be attended to, a broken sewer needs to be attended to, that they're able to participate in the project without having to be the prime on a huge contract. So it's allowed, I think, at the authorities to build the capacity of those smaller firms so that they're able to get the experience working on the government projects and to add capacity and grow over time. However, in this case, I agree with Councilwoman Smith that in a way here, it says right in the first line that Council is pre-authorizing basically 82 open-ended professional service agreements, right? And so we wouldn't be participating, and the public wouldn't be hearing, which is kind of the point. You're expediting the contracting because you've pre-qualified them at the outset. And so I think we need to take some time to understand what are the upsides, but also what are possible downsides. We've seen cases that don't end well, where contracts were awarded outside of the public view, those products and processes were not okay. So this is again a kind of way for the private sector, certainly, and even at authorities. We've seen these qualifying companies being used, but on the other hand, the $750,000 is a pretty high cap. And so and since you suggest that they're useful in redoing facilities, which council has talked about and the public has talked about and we've approved, or in landslides, which we know are emergencies, I'm wondering if a better version of this bill would be to qualify it for just those purposes instead of any and every purpose that comes up in a capital project. And it just seems like, being put on the table here in the middle of budget season when we've had a great, even for the public, there's a lot on this agenda today. There's a lot in this packet. If this is not very good timing to have this discussion. So I'm going to suggest that council members do need more time to consider whether this is the right process for these projects or whether there's some delimited way that we can help both grow small businesses and create, a way for the administration to respond quickly to dire capital needs. Everybody understands that, but not given the kind of wide open authorization across the board. So I'm going to leave it at that for now.
Any other conversation? Ms. Harris.
Yes. I had some questions because I've asked about a bridge engineer, but we do have a bridge engineer on staff.
We do have a bridge engineer on staff, we do.
Okay.
Yes, but its single engineer is not able to construct a full construction package for a bridge.
Okay, say that again?
Putting together a construction, a plan specification and engineering for full reconstruction of a bridge such as Greenfield Avenue or Boulevard of the Allies or any of these other bridges, it really cannot be done by a single person. There's a number of different disciplines that go into.
So we only have what?
We have a few bridge engineers, but all the same, it really takes a large team to put together a complex construction package like that.
Okay. And I think on the other engineers, I think I've seen them at work, especially on landslides where they go out and they're with us for sometimes half a year, 3/4 of a year. So it's cheaper to pay them this way than it is if we're paying them as staff with all the benefits and everything wrapped up with it. Is that?
That's not exactly the motivation for this. So again, with any one of our projects using a retaining wall, we need to have drainage specialists that can look at the hydrology of the area and be able to handle how we're going to allow water to transpire through the wall or handle behind it. We need to have structural engineers to think about which methodology of construction is going to be best. We need to have geotechnical engineers as to how that wall will be anchored into the rock structure of the city. We may want to have some aesthetic improvements to the wall. We need to have some traffic engineering to put together the maintenance and protection of traffic for what occurs during construction. So it really is, it is the number of disciplines and the number of individuals that will need to touch these projects, pop in and out of it as the project evolves, why we hire consultants to complete these designs. Most departments of transportation, from PennDOT to FHWA to our sister jurisdictions around us, this is the way that most of these designs are done.
Okay, that's why I thought we were using them like that. So we have a number of them that we use sort of like staff because they're here all the time.
We do, but they're not included in this kind of a contract. Yeah.
Okay, so that's another contract.
Yeah.
Okay. And for the, I guess it's the, and I just forgot about it. Let me get to the next one a while. The geotech studies. Are any of these people working on a Semester Street project? They should have started like 10 years ago with that. The landslide that's in Riverview Park that's pulling down the rest of the houses on Semester. Would
Yes.
it be these people?
There's a whole list of folks that would be qualified for work in geotechnical.
Okay. So, well, if I come to you, I'll be able to see where we're at with that street to try to hold that up. Okay. I did recognize a number of the people here, which we used to have people on staff that did all this work. Is there a reason that you do not have more of these engineers on staff? I mean, I believe URA has about 12 or 13.
I don't know URA's staffing, but we filled all of our available positions for the engineering and technical services.
But if there's others that you needed, did you think about asking for them? Or do you feel that because we're using and we just keep popping around that it would cost us more?
I'm sure every department could articulate staffing needs that they would could recommend. So we have as well.
Okay, and because you were told you couldn't, is that why we have so many more of these on here? I'm not sure. I guess
think
I'll
there's just
put you on the
limitations
hot
to the
seat
budget.
here.
There's just limitations to the budget. So we
Yeah.
we do the best we can.
You would probably need 70 people on staff to hit all of these categories and be able to do, the
don't know.
volume
We
of
did a
work.
lot.
I mean, there's a lot of different types of expertise, railroad and stuff. Like, we would have a railroad engineer, he'd probably sit here
Speaking of
most of the year
railroad,
doing nothing.
That's the other one.
Yeah.
What are you actually consulting? Is that with an attorney, or what is that with the railroad?
It would be likely they would have a law background, but they would be those with railroad expertise. It depends on what the question may be. This is definitely a
Double stacked.
Well, we do work adjacent to railroad facilities. We need to understand what, the concerns of the railroad may be so that we can be successful and move very quickly with those kinds of proposals. We may have some legal clarifications that are necessary with the railroads. It would be good to have experts sort of on the city side of the table so that we can, but that is a good example of a skill set that we probably don't need on a day in and day out basis, but to have that bench available to us so that we have those resources to call on as we need it would be extremely helpful.
So in other words, you might not call on
We might not call on them.
all of them,
That's-
but you want to make sure that you have them
correct.
available to you.
Yeah, there could be any one of these categories that we might not ever even need. You never know,
Okay.
but.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Connor.
Just real quick, I understand the need that we're doing this quicker. So my question is, you did mention the EORC, so we can ensure that one company doesn't get every contract. So how, is that goes through the regular EORC process, which takes relatively how long?
They meet once a month.
Okay.
So
we need an
usually
emergency architect for some reason. I don't know when you ever need an architect for an emergency, but.
Never know.
Who knows? Okay, so it goes through the ERC. So you're actually not awarding these contracts for a month or so, and they're going to take into consideration women, minority-owned businesses, and everything like that. So next
Correct.
year, when we see this, we're not going to see one company got all 15.
No, and that's exactly the reason that, working with law and the departments, we designed a cap, an annual cap for each vendor.
Okay.
So that, number one, so if we have, $500,000 and it's a $100,000 cap, there's 5 projects, then each 5 different ones are
But
going
once
to
they
get
hit
that.
their cap,
Right.
that company is now
They're
shut off
done until
from
next year.
this.
And,
But if there's a major project and we partner with PennDOT, they could also be a bidder on something
Yes,
like that.
if we're putting
Okay,
any
so we are capping
RFP
them.
that
Right,
is
any
specific that we put out, and there could be certain projects that we probably, maybe we could use one of these consultants, but for certain particular reasons, we might want to go out to bid to the open market. You know, that's always a right, we don't have to always use these. It's
Yeah,
just a
these are just the
tool.
ones we have that are ready. Okay, yeah, I was just concerned that we don't want one company to get all of them. I know Councilwoman Strasburger asked that question as well, so.
And that's exactly why we put those caps, those annual caps in there, so that we can't keep
Was
going.
it 75 or 100? What did you say was the cap was?
No, individual, 750,000
Okay.
a year.
Yeah, it's an annual cap.
It's an annual cap.
Annual
So
cap.
if somebody gets over, that's in the medium bucket. So if somebody in a smaller bucket, you know, if they get, then we're
But that's
moving
only,
on, it's, you know,
but
to
that's,
different
that,
categories.
that number is only for this 2.5. That doesn't apply to if they're going out for another bid for another contract, right?
Right,
So
just
out of the
under the realms of
2.5
the
million that
pre-qualified.
we're gonna have over these 82 open-ended contracts, basically, they can only get to 750,000. One company could, in theory, get that much. Is that
I'd have
right?
to go back and see exactly how code is worded, but
Okay, can
they
you
can't-
get us that code or just send me a copy of it?
yeah, I
just-
should have printed that out, I apologize.
Okay, that's
but
fine.
that's
But,
part of
okay,
what-
so 750, one company in theory could get.
It's been quite a while since you guys approved that legislation, so.
Yeah, no, then that's fine, and I think
you
that's
don't
what we're all
remember.
spinning here and talking to each other and
Yep.
figuring it out. So, okay, now I guess that would be on us to go back and say, wait, 750 is too much for one company. We would then have to amend that ordinance if we wanted to.
That would be correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anyone else? Councilman, still in first round, Councilman Lavelle.
Thank you. Councilman O'Connor actually asked a question that I was going to, so I'm gonna just simply follow up and simply say I think council should revisit the legislation. And I say it only to suggest that, as an example, AECom is listed on here. I think they may be the largest infrastructure companies, one of the largest in the world. And so 750 in the grand scheme of things for them can sort of be viewed as peanuts. I mean, it's a large number, but for them it's peanuts. However, John J. Clark and Associates, 750,000 for his very small firm is a game changer. And so I'm simply suggesting to council that I think we should probably go back and look at that to say, well, wait a minute, how do we give more resources to the small minority women-owned businesses that are local, aren't doing work all over the globe, and help them get more resources, while AECom, and they're terrific, they did the subway under the river, and they do other great work, but it's not as important for them, and it's not as much of a boost to our economy as opposed to giving it to Cosmos Technologies, which 750 could ensure he makes payroll that year. So I'm just, that's more of a comment for colleagues, that we should go back and take a look at
Yeah,
that.
and that's, I think, the majority, that's why you see that the majority of the contracts awarded are in that small category.
Yeah.
And it is, you know, they are assigned to those smaller businesses because of capacity. The AEComs and that, they're in that medium bucket. So the small businesses don't have to compete against the AEComs, right? They get that opportunity for those small projects. And when it's the bigger projects in the medium-sized bucket, you know, then those larger firms, then they're gonna compete amongst themselves for an individual scope of work. So this is, and that's part of the idea of it too, is to help develop, you know, those small business and give them a better chance of getting projects as well too, because when they're walking into the room and spending all that money doing those proposals over and over again, they keep losing because the big guy comes in with this great price because his overhead's better, and you know they're losing out. This is really going to help, I think, the opportunities. And there's a lot of local businesses and firms in here as well, which was really nice for us to see.
Thank you.
So, first round, second round, we'll start with Councilman Rose. Oh, I'm sorry, first round, Ms. Coggins.
That's okay. So, I guess the whole idea is to make it a more expedient process and to help smaller businesses and local businesses, and that's great. It sounds like it's well thought out to me, you know, but I understand the other council members, what concerns they have. You know, I'll follow whatever lead. I could support this today, or we could talk about it and figure out, as Councilman Lavelle said, these minor things. But it comes a certain time, I'd love to get in the weeds with every single thing that comes in front of us, but I just don't have the time, of course. So it comes a certain time. You all think this is a good thing, right? And it helps the process get done. Okay, that's it for me.
So I'm going to beg council's indulgence for just a few seconds as I make a few remarks. Councilwoman Smith mentioned about talking to the unions. I want to say a word about that for just a minute. Since we have three of our more leading journalists in the room, I want to make a statement to kind of lay down a marker. I have been a member of the Allegheny Community College of Allegheny County's local AFT union, local 2067, for 28 years. I think I am the only council member who is actually a card-carrying union member and have been so during my whole tenure on council. I live in the house, my father's house that I lived in, my grandfather, my uncles, my brother, almost every member of my family was a member of the union. And the union made them have livable wages and retirement and health care. Not just me, but many of us owe our middle class upbringing because of the fights and the dedication of unions. I am a union member. I support the unions in their work unilaterally. 10 years ago, I was in former Mayor Ravenstall's office, and we met with the laborers, the unions, all the unions, mostly the building trade. We met with all the unions. And they talked about their willingness to make Pittsburgh a closed shop where only union workers could do the work in most development, publicly funded development. And I listened, and I told them I would support that idea with one caveat. That is that you guarantee that 25% of every single thing goes to African Americans. You provide me with a guarantee that 25% of every work goes to African Americans, and you will have my support that nothing gets built in this city without unions. Yeah. They, of course, could not make that promise or make that deal. Sometimes, although I love unions and I'm a union member, sometimes I get a little pushback from some of my friends who I still think are my friends in the unions because I support something else. And I want to say this publicly. I support unequivocally African American developers and African American laborers, specifically in building housing and projects in African American communities for African American residents. I support African American developers and African American laborers building houses and projects in African American communities for African American residents. I will not deviate from that. I believe that African Americans deserve the right to rebuild their own communities. I get pushback from my friends for that reason. It is not that I don't love them, but I recognize that if I do not use sometimes non-union workers, African Americans will not have the opportunity to build the houses for their own people in their own communities. And so I am willing to take the heat for that, because sometimes justice, even though I'm a union member, sometimes justice, diversity and equity means doing something that's uncomfortable, right? And so I take the uncomfortable stance, and that's sometimes when you hear me criticize privately, it's for that reason, not that I don't support unions, I do. And in my projects that I support, because I've met with them about this, it only affects 2% of all the things they build, right? And they want me to not do this, but I in good conscience I cannot change this stance. I can't. If you live in Homewood and there's some houses being built in Homewood, it makes sense to people in that community. It houses in Sheridan. It makes sense to me that community members that live in Sheridan should have the opportunity to work, because so I'm sorry, I just want to be real clear as to where I am, where my place is, what I believe is, because I don't usually say much about it, right? I hear the criticisms, I don't respond to them much, but I figured today, given the firepower of media in the room, when these issues come up, you have heard it from me, the stance I take and why I take it. I will now go to second round, starting with second round with Councilwoman Smith, then Councilwoman Gross, and then Councilwoman Harris.
And I don't know if we've seen a letter from the EORC in support of this final draft. So that would also be helpful to have that in our package, to know that they are totally supportive, and that and to Reverend's comments, that we make sure that we're getting contracts and work is going to our minority community and women businesses. But and I'm just curious, are there any kind of like conflict of interest forms or anything that people have to sign? Because I notice a lot of these people donate to campaigns.
All of the standard disclosures they are required to give, all of the standard statement of affiliations, making sure they're not debarred, conflict of interest statements, all of the normal things that are in every professional service agreement that we expect. They're supposed to disclose if they have lobbyists, all of the same stuff.
Okay, that's really important to me. Okay,
yes.
And then I will say to Reverend, to your comments, I don't disagree that we should be making sure that our unions have more minorities. I think that they are doing more to reach out in that area. But I mean, hey, if there's ever a time that people feel that there's something in conflict with their personal beliefs, you can always not take funding from them. And I know for me, I raise very little funds in my campaign, and I return probably more checks than I keep. So, if unions are concerned, there's always the option of not taking funding and donations from them. That's it for me. Thank you.
When I mentioned the media, I didn't mean to exclude our lovely and able member of radio, which is my favorite medium, on my right-hand side, right? It's my favorite medium. I look to my left instead of to my right, too. So you're included in that great body of journalists who are in the room today. Councilwoman Gross?
Thank you. I want to return to this idea of the transparency and accountability issues. So help me out. When you do a regular RFP, old style way, let's say, and as you would continue to do for the larger contracts, and then you issue an RFP, you don't really do you need council's approval for the RFP?
Not to issue it, but to enter into the agreement,
Okay, so
yes.
you kind of think of the project you want, you issue an RFP, everybody sends you proposals. You decide what the proposals are. At this point, we don't know anything about it, the public doesn't know anything about it, we haven't been included, we don't know who's submitted proposals even. And I ask that because at PWSA, when I get a board packet, I see everybody's bid, at least the dollar amounts, right, and the names of the bidders. And then it is suggested to the board, but the administration isn't choosing a proposal and then showing one proposal. And that's been the way it's been done here. Is that right? You're only bringing us one. And we've had discussions on other topics when council has received some public input, and then we've had to specifically ask who were the other bidders on a project. And it wasn't even, I'm not even thinking about a facilities project or a capital project. I think it was a kind of professional agreement in a different department. And then we do approve the one proposal that you've brought forward, then you enter into that contract, and that contract then goes to the controller to be in public record. It's at the very, very end of the process. So here, you've basically entered into agreements with these pre-qualified firms. Do we know which firms applied? All of them, or does anyone even know which ones you've pre-qualified? So, for example, should those pre-qualifications maybe be listed on the controller's website?
They will be. Each of these individual contracts will be on the controller's website.
That's not what I asked.
Yes, the qualifications will be in
Right, so
there as well.
even if you never award a contract to them, but they've been pre-qualified, is their pre-qualification listed?
That is going to be part of the contract.
Okay.
Yeah, what their qualifications were and which categories they were qualified for.
That's still not what I'm asking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You are asking us today to authorize 82 open-end professional services agreements. Will all of those 82 agreements be on the controller's website?
Yes.
All right, so day one.
Yep.
Okay, so then later, firm, let's pick the first one on the list. Do I see a name? Oh, here's the name, sorry. So, AE Works Limited. Tomorrow, you decide you need a contract with them for something, even though it's because you've got them on call. And so then also that contract goes on the controller's website, but you don't need council's approval for that contract,
For the scope of work, the individual scope of work, we would not.
right?
Just to enter into the agreement. The way code is written today, we need a council's approval to enter into the agreement, and then the individual scopes of work that we assign, just like we do on our line item contracts
I think
and things
this
like
is
that.
this is the approval for the agreement.
This is the approval for the agreement,
Right.
yes. But the
So
individual.
there's
scope-
not an additional, I'm saying after today,
Correct.
right? So you go to award your first project.
Right.
I'm again trying to clarify the vocabulary as
No,
well.
it's okay.
Right? And so what are you calling it if you tomorrow, a hillside collapse and you call AE Works and the very first one on the list, I'm calling that a contract because I'm calling this a professional services agreement, right? So they've been pre-qualified with this professional services agreement they're asking for approval for today. And then you're saying that all of these immediately go, you've got them in the public record now, which is nice, because we can
Correct.
have this
Yes.
in our legislative record. And then they will also be listed on the controller's website. But then tomorrow, at Hillside Collapse, you go to the first one on the list, you say, we're going to enter into a contract with you.
Technically, we would be assigning a scope of, well, not necessarily assigning a scope of work, but the department would define a scope of work for the project, figure out who was going to do it, whether it was small enough that we could just pick one person, or if it was something larger that we had to get at least 3 proposals from the folks on the list, evaluate those, and then they would write a letter of authorization that went through the normal capital budget. They have a route. I'm not sure if budget gets them first or whatever when you guys do an LOA. So it would, it gets all the checks up that it normally does. EORC looks and says, yes, this is something that should have been reviewed by EORC. If it is, yes, or no, this is something that doesn't go through EORC, they would say no. It goes down to the controller's office after it passes through budget and everything. They encumber the money to hold the budget, and then they take those individual LOAs and post them and attach them to that contract record in Open Book. So as soon as a scope of work project is assigned, that would get scanned in and assigned and attached to the individual contract in Open Book, so that the public can see what scopes of work were assigned to who and to how much.
Okay, so at the end of 6 months or a year, we can look back and see which of the firms are getting these contracts.
Absolutely.
And if they cross the threshold of $50,000, there will also be the EORC report on the minority participation.
Correct, and we're going to be working with Chuck in the EORC office to do actually a monthly report for the EORC on projects that were assigned, the amount, to what vendor, so that they can review that on a monthly basis. We could also send that to council as well if you so wish for us to
Yeah,
do
I think
so.
that would be helpful for us to evaluate this. It still gives me pause that we are, pre-authorizing 82 open-ended professional service agreements, again, has its pluses and its minuses. And I just want the public to understand that if they care about transparency and accountability, then they need to hold us to that standard. And we need to really have a conversation. That's why I don't like this being rushed. I don't like this being brought forward on the very end of the year in a very heavy agenda without a lot of conversation about it. So I still think that there's going to be people who are going to have input, and we could revisit this in a week if members are comfortable with the one we called. So let me just do that. I'm going to motion to hold 1 week.
Second, does it need a second? Motion to hold is a privileged motion. She can make the motion to hold. Need a second.
So I don't get to speak.
If there's a second for the motion, is there a second for the motion? I heard second. It doesn't matter. If she makes the motion to hold, it's a privileged motion. It goes before the
I would like
speaking.
to hear your questions. We can do it next week.
We can either do it by roll call or by voice, which is your pleasure, council.
Voice.
There's no discussion really on the motion to hold. It's just the vote. All right, roll call vote. Let's do it that way.
Mr. Cockhill.
Abstain.
Mrs. Gross.
Aye.
Mrs. Harris.
No.
President Kraus. No. Mr. Lavelle. Mr. O'Connor. Mrs. Kilsmith.
Aye.
Mrs. Strasburger.
Aye.
Reverend Burgess.
Aye.
6 ayes, 2 noes, and 1 abstention.
Okay, the motion, okay, it's held for 1 week. We have time to talk about it. We're not, we have lots of stuff to do. We have lots of stuff to do. This is just one of many things. Next bill, please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, the next one is the same, pretty much. Bill 2357, resolution authorizing 126 open-end professional services agreement with multiple vendors to provide professional services in 22 categories of work on an on-call basis as required, related to the assessment, design, construction, and maintenance of the city's infrastructure buildings and lands as needed by various departments of the city, being at an amount not to exceed $750,000 annually for a 2-year term up to 2 additional 1-year options and providing for funding of the cost thereof.
Motion to hold 1 week. I need a motion.
To hold 1 week.
Need a second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Both bills are held 1 week. We'll have that conversation. We'll go at it next week. All right, next bill, please.
Bill 2367, resolution authorizing the city clerk and the mayor to enter into an agreement with vendors and/or consultants for the purpose of renovation of certain space on the 5th floor of the city county building. Cost shall not exceed $85,000.
Motion to approve.
Need a second. Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. It takes us to the invoices. Invoices on the table. Need a motion for the invoices.
Motion to approve.
Need a second. Questions about the invoices? No discussion about the invoices. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, there's nay. Give me a second to get through my papers. We do have departmental transfers. Need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Need a second. Conversation about the transfers. No. All, Ms. Harris.
Yeah, question.
Question on transfers. Mr. Bannock. Ms. Harris.
Bill, what numbers are these coming from to go for the vehicles? Let me ask this way. Is any of this money coming from the money it's taken for outside work?
No, I don't believe so. Are you speaking about the trust fund? No.
Okay.
Any other conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. P cards also on the table. Need a motion for the P cards?
No. Are there P cards? I don't see them.
Yes, P cards are on the table.
Motion to approve.
Need a second. Conversation about the P cards. Ms. Harris.
I had a question. Anytime any part of Allegheny County needs any kind of permit from the city of Pittsburgh, do they pay us for it?
I believe they do with building permits and things like that.
You believe they do? Can you check on that? Sure. Okay, because it looks like we're paying Allegheny County, but we are in Allegheny County. We're part of Allegheny County. And it just seems to go from one government body to the other governmental body doesn't make sense.
Any other conversation? So you know the conversation. P cards are on the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Takes us to Public Safety Service Committee. Mr. Lavelle is the chair. We have a new paper.
Bill 2358, resolution amending resolution number 751, authorizing the mayor and director of public safety to enter on behalf of the city into an amended professional services agreement with St. Mort's Security Services for security guard services. Compensation under said amended agreement shall be in an amount not to exceed $2,482,000 with annual not to exceed amounts as set forth below for each respective budget year, subject to the availability of funds and annual council appropriation at rates in compliance with the subject to all applicable requirements, including but not limited to collective bargaining commitments and the City of Pittsburgh Service Worker Prevailing Wage Ordinance.
Need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Any conversation?
This is just for our security services in this building. This is because through their collective bargaining, their rates went up. They're represented by SEIU, and so we need to reflect that.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Lavelle. Ms. Harris?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you give your name?
Tony Landolina, Assistant Director of Public Safety Administration.
Tony, I'm going to ask this question again. Okay. Why is not, we pay for the metal detectors, correct?
Yes.
We pay for one side of the elevators, the one side that usually work all the time. And we pay for the security guards. Yet the building is half Allegheny County and half City of Pittsburgh, which we are part of, Allegheny County. Why is not the county paying half of this?
My understanding is that there's an agreement between the city and the county for this building, for the expenses incurred.
We'll get out here.
And at the end of the year, there is some sort of reconciliation where both parties pay either equal amounts based on the occupancy that they use in the building. So this goes into that calculation.
Does that happen through the rest of Allegheny County?
I don't know.
Anyway, we can check.
I can ask the budget office. That's not something that is under my purview, but I can check.
Would you please?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Any other conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. Point of order.
I need to revisit Bill 2367. There was an amendment that I needed to offer up that I apologize I did not offer up.
All right, where are we at?
Bill 2367 under Finance and Law. It was the last bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Page 4, the last bill. All right, I need a motion to reconsider 2367.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
All right, now I need a motion to amend.
A motion to amend, very brief discussion.
Need a second?
All members have this. It's technical in nature. It really just, it changes the year from 2019 to 2020. I apologize for the confusion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. And that takes us to the original bill as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed is nay. Since we went off schedule, I've been aware of the fact that we have we did have, so.
Can we finish?
In the room.
The rest of public safety is really easy.
I know where we're at. I'm just trying to think if I saw her in the room and she left.
I think she went to the restroom.
All right, when she comes back, we'll dispose of her bill when she comes back in the room. That takes us back to public safety. I'm having 2 or 3 conversations at the same time. That takes us back to public safety services. Next bill, please.
Bill 2359, resolution amending resolution number 653, authorizing the mayor and director of public safety to enter on behalf of the city into an amended professional services agreement with In Time Solutions, Inc. for EMS and police scheduling and timekeeping services at a cost not to exceed $863,525.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed is nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2360, resolution providing for the issuance of a warrant in favor of Zoll Medical Corporation in the amount of $24,500 for equipment mounting brackets for the Department of Public Safety Bureau of Emergency Medical Services.
Need a motion?
To approve.
Need a second? Second. Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Next bill, please.
Bill 2361, resolution providing for the issuance of a warrant in favor of Zoll Medical Corporation in the amount of $195,000 for software needed for the operation of automated external defibrillators and heart monitors for the Department of Public Safety.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. That takes us to the Public Safety Services Committee. That takes us now to the Public Works Committee. Ms. Carol Smith, I think Ms. Carol Smith is the chair. We have a supplemental paper.
Bill 2390, resolution authorizing the transfer by the city to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Transportation certain public right-of-way on certain property of the 4th Ward in cooperation with a PennDOT construction project.
Read the next one, too.
Bill number 2391, resolution authorizing the acceptance by the city to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania from the Department of Transportation certain dedicated public right-of-way on certain property in the 15th Ward of the city in cooperation with a PennDOT construction project.
Need a motion, Ms.
Motion
Smith?
to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2392, resolution providing for a contract or agreements, providing for the design, repairs, maintenance, improvement, emergencies, and/or the purchase of materials, equipment, and supplies in connection with the construction of the West Ohio Street Bridge project, not to exceed $7,703,986.30.
Need a motion, Ms. Smith?
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Any conversation? Ms. Smith?
Yes, Director, come to the table.
Ms. Smith, followed by Ms. Harris.
Thank you.
Morning, Director.
Morning, Director. I know you're busy. We're going to try to get you out here quickly, but I do want to say, first, introduce yourself for the public again.
Karina Ricks, the Director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure.
Thank you. And I'm going to turn this over to Councilwoman Harris, but I do want to say there's quite a few bills on here that a request for Rule 8 was made, and I don't feel comfortable with all of them because, one, I didn't have any conversation with you or Director Gable or anyone from either department. And so I'm going to hold some of them today, but I'm going to turn this one over to Councilwoman Harris.
Ms. Harris.
Yes, we all know that the West Ohio Street Bridge is wanting, the railroads want to make it double stacked. So this is the first bridge out of many streets, such as in Councilman LaValle's district, and I don't know, Councilwoman, Councilwoman Strasburger and Councilwoman Gross. It hits a lot of our districts. There are lawsuits up right now, and I'm going to abstain on this today because I think it would be ridiculous to raise a bridge and maybe not have to. It would cost us probably about $1 million to put it back down. Because the next spot, just so you know, after trying to pull that bridge up for a double stack train, then it has to go underground because they want to have the double stacked, and that's where Brighton Road and West North Avenue come together, and it's already a bump because of the first stack. So this gives a lot of consequences, not just to my district, but it's going to do it all the way around. So that's why I'm abstaining at this time.
Thank you very much. Any other conversation? No other conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay. Abstentions?
Abstain.
Thank you very much. Next bill, please.
Bill 2393, resolution amending and supplementing resolution number 98, which authorized the mayor and director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure to execute relevant agreements to receive grant funding to support Washington Boulevard multi-module path construction to account for bid accepted that was higher than originally anticipated and for additional sources of funding not to exceed $741,249.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Second. Any conversation?
Well, is this your district?
It's either mine or Deb's. I'm not sure what part of it. I think it's hers.
Pretty much shared. I think it's on my side.
I think it's your
yeah.
side. Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2394, resolution amending and supplementing Resolution Number 591 in connection with the Bike Infrastructure Program to account for bid accepted that was higher than originally anticipated, but not to exceed $863,608.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Any conversation?
Yes.
The conversation, Ms. Smith.
Director, could you explain a little bit about this?
Yeah, so this project is what has been variously referred to as the Gap to the Point bicycle project. So this would take the Great Allegheny Passage Trail and extend it all the way to Point Stake Park. This has been a project going on, I think, since 2015. It's been modified a number of times in response to various stakeholder concerns. It's a great project. We think that this is a super thing for the city. The bids did come in as the bill relays. The bids came in higher than the original budgeted amount. We're coming at this time because the Southwest Pennsylvania Commission did allocate more money from the state sources to help make up that gap. And so that's what's causing us to come back at this time to accept that additional state funding to enable us to deliver that project. And that determination was made at SPC just a couple of weeks ago.
And you're working with council people in those districts as well? Those areas.
This project has been, well coordinated with the councilman and the other stakeholders in that area.
I'm worried about the council person. So okay.
This is Councilman Lavelle.
Okay.
The downtown bike facilities.
Yeah. For me, as long as they're supportive. I mean, it's up to them to worry about whether their constituents are supportive. Okay. Okay.
Any other conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2002, resolution vacating a portion of Gatlin Street in the 10th Ward, 7th Council District.
Need a motion?
Motion to hold 3 weeks.
Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2364, resolution amending Resolution 563,
Director.
authorizing the mayor and director of Public Works and Parks and Recreation to enter into a license, loan, and maintenance agreement with the Carnegie Institute for Carnegie Museum of Art relating to the restoration, repair, reinstallation, loan, and maintenance of sculptures for Allegheny Landing Park.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve. Discussion.
Need a second?
I'm not sure whose district this is. Hi. Are you here for this? Good morning.
Tony Cavallini, Acting Public Art and Civic Design Manager for the Department of City Planning.
Thank you. Could you just tell me what neighborhood, what area this is?
This is over on the North Shore. If you guys remember, these are right across from the stadium.
Oh, yeah.
This is the one we're talking about. There is an existing license, loan, and maintenance agreement for 4 of the 5 sculptures in that park. In doing their bookkeeping, it was recently brought to the attention of the Carnegie Museum of Art that the 5th sculpture was not included in that. So this is just amending that.
Okay, thank you. I'm supportive. This is Councilwoman Harris. You supportive? It's her district. Okay.
Any other questions? No other questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. That exhausts the Public Works Committee. We're going to move to the back of the agenda and to the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee. Mr. Carter is the chair. We have a supplemental paper. We'll just walk through them.
Bill 2386, resolution authorizing a corporation agreement providing for the transfer of funds not to exceed $7,432,971 to the City Equipment Leasing Authority for the purchase and leasing of vehicles, equipment, and accessories for use by the City Department and authorities, and to extend the corporation agreement to accommodate lease agreements for a 7- and 5-year lease period to provide for vehicles in the Bureau of Fire.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2387, resolution approving execution of a contract for disposition between the URA and the Housing Authority of the city for various lots and blocks in the 12th Ward, Council District 9, Choice Neighborhood, Phases 3, Larimer through East Liberty.
Need a
Motion to approve.
Need a second? I'm in support. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2388, resolution approving execution of a contract for disposition between the URA and various housing, and the Housing Authority of the city for various lots in the 12th Ward, Council District 9, Choice Neighborhood, Phases 4, Larimore and East Liberty.
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2362, resolution authorizing a corporation agreement between the city and the URA to divert 75% of the incremental parking taxes from the garage up to a maximum of $25 million to fund general construction costs at the proposed Block E development part of the Greater Laurel Hill Development Project in the Laurel Hill neighborhood of the city.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2363, resolution authorizing the mayor and the Office of Management and Budget to renew the non-exclusive license agreement with the Federal General Services Administration for the Veterans Affairs Highland Drive campus for limited use and to conduct due diligence pursuant to the application approved by the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Department of Justice to acquire the property for law enforcement and emergency management purposes.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. That takes us back to the front of the agenda. I think it takes us to Human Resources Committee. Ms. Harris is the chair. We have a deferred paper.
Bill 2286, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Office of Management and Budget to enter into a corporation agreement with Partner for Work for the shared operation and administration of the Workforce Development Fund for a period of 2 years from the opening of the fund in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Discussion.
Discussion. Ms. Harris? No?
Oh,
Deferred?
just briefly, in talking to the administration, we are going to make a motion to hold 2 weeks. When we come back with the new council in the spring, we will transfer this into a fund and then give out the money to an organization. I know there were questions about Partner for Work and things like that. Oh, is it 3 weeks? Sorry. So I would make a motion to hold 3 weeks.
Second. Need a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Okay, that takes us to Land Use and Economic Development Committee. Ms. Gross is the chair.
Bill 2384, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of City Planning to enter into contract and hire consultants to develop a master plan for the Fort Pitt Park. The park master plan shall be executed for a sum not to exceed $45,000.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2385, resolution providing for an agreement with the Green Building Alliance for the purposes of incorporating green building practices into development review processes and providing for the payment at a cost not to exceed $35,000.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2398, resolution further amending resolution number 863 by amending various city council CDBG unspecified local option line items and authorizing a subsequent agreement for operation administrative expenses, maintenance, purchase of equipment, and/or rehabilitation of neighborhood facilities on behalf of the residents.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
Conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2399, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of City Planning to enter into an agreement with Open Box Design LLC to assist the city to plan and develop a community visioning study and the Department of City Planning in the East Hills, Lincoln, Leamington, Belmar communities and provide for the payment of the cost not to exceed $200,000.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2401, resolution further amending resolution number 863, adopting and approving the 2019 capital budget and the 2019 through 2024 capital improvement program in order to transfer a project from DOMI to planning.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve. Discussion.
Second.
Second.
So briefly, this is for the Penn and Main intersection at the bottom of the Bloomfield Bridge. So it's money for a Bloomfield project. And I'm moving it to planning, but I have to motion to amend to change the job number from OMB.
There's a motion to amend on the table. All those I need a second to the motion to amend.
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay, as amended. Any other conversation? No conversation. All those for the original bill in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. That gets us to the Urban Recreation Committee. Mr. Coghill is the chair. We have a recommitted paper.
Bill 2319, resolution calling for transparency and oversight in regards to previously approved corporation agreement, contracts, leases, and special agreements with Pittsburgh Park Conservancy in light of a voter-approved referendum measure to amend the Home Rule Charter.
Need a motion, Mr. Coghill.
Motion to approve for discussion.
Second, Mr. Coghill.
I'll defer to anybody. I said all I had to say.
Ms. Gross.
Thank you, appreciate it. So this is the bill that we talked about last Tuesday at Standing Committee. We did approve the companion bill that asked the controller to audit those documents. And remember, we had the giant stack of papers in front of me that the administration had brought over the papers that this bill requests. Just for the record, there's no master bibliography of agreements that the mayor's office has with anyone. Maybe there should be, but it's not a thing that we know. We trust that those are all the agreements that there are. And I would say just, if the Parks Conservancy has an agreement sitting around that we don't have in our packet, please bring it forward to us. But secondly, we recommitted this bill because council members Kraus and Strasburger had asked about the various types of powers that council has vis-a-vis the administration. Because the original legislation had two things, giving a time limit by saying, 180 days, 6 months or so, and all of these existing agreements should be terminated. It's good to give people deadlines. And secondly, there was a section that said that in the meanwhile, while we have this 8-inch stack high of agreements to review, and the public now has them, that the administration should not amend or create any other agreements other than the ones that we have, so that there's not changes, right? We want to know that we're reviewing the ones that are current. And our law department in response gave us a memo that says, well, council doesn't have the right to terminate agreements. Which is interesting, and I think there's probably other opinions in the world on that we only have the power as a body to authorize the administration. And then secondly, it kind of diced, in my reading of it here, which we'd only had it in front of us for a few hours before we were in session last week. They didn't really directly answer the question of whether or not we can prohibit the mayor from amending any current agreement. They kind of said, well, you didn't really name the parties, and you should name the parties. So I think we probably do have the power to say, look, come on, in the meanwhile, don't mess with any of these agreements while we all have them as the public and are looking at them. But we didn't really fix that language for today, and we trust that we do have all the agreements that we need. If we feel further in the coming weeks that we need to just emphasize that there should be no other agreements, I think we need some time to work those out, right? And in the meanwhile, I think we have a very curious public discussion in front of us that we don't need to answer today about where really is the line of difference of powers between the administration and the public's elected representatives here on council. And so I'll look forward to having that conversation, but I don't think there's any action we need to take today on this. I'm not sure the controller's office has gotten those agreements. Madam Clerk has scanned them. Madam Clerk, did you send those agreements? You sent them to members in email Friday, I think.
Yes.
So is there an official submission from your office, date stamped and all that has gone to the controller's office?
Not sure if we date stamped anything to
So
the
that's probably the next
controller's
step,
office, but
yeah.
we do have them date stamped
Well,
in
we
our
passed the
office.
legislation for the controller to audit the agreement, so no one else in the world has them but us in our email, right? You have it and we have it.
We have it.
So
I'm
we
not
need to
sure
share
the
it with the
controller.
controller's office?
Sure,
All
we'll
right.
do that.
So that's the next
Not
step.
a problem.
Councilwoman Smith.
So thank you. I want to thank my colleagues for working on this with us and making sure that we're going to assure our residents that we're going to address and watch every dime that comes in for the parks and that the money goes to what the public was promised. But I will say that I thought the law department's opinion was very interesting and really gave council a lot more power than we thought, and saying that we basically don't have to do a thing other than maybe just create the fund. We don't have to send it to Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy. We could pick any organization and set the criteria. So I think it was very interesting and gave council a lot, and I think council is going to make sure we take advantage of that and make sure that we're going to give that money to people, to organizations that people can trust to do the work. I think there's a lot of people that are talking about this. I think there's a lot of people that are having buyer's remorse after voting for the tax, not realizing what they voted, what some people had voted for, which is unfortunate, but I think it was very targeted, and very intentional. But I will say that I don't know that we have the agreement for Mount Washington, so I'd like to look over those agreements. So if you don't mind holding 1 week, I think that that's what we should do, hold for 1 week because I'd really like to look at those agreements to see what's included in the one for Mount Washington, because that's the one that's most interesting to me, and
Need a motion.
that made me so angry the most.
Need a motion.
Motion to hold 1 week.
Need a second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. We have supplemental paper.
Bill 2403, resolution authorizing pursuant to Chapter 173 of the City Code, the naming of the soccer field at Riverview Park as Ravenstall Field.
Need a motion to hold 3 weeks.
For public hearing.
Need a motion to hold 3 weeks.
Motion to hold 3 weeks.
Need a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposers, nay. Next bill, please. We
Bill-
go next to Innovation, Performance, and Asset Management Committee. Ms. Strasburger is the chair.
Bill 2395, resolution authorizing the mayor and the city controller to countersign a warrant in favor of Motorola Solutions, Inc. for the renewal of the annual maintenance and support agreement for Premier NBC server and client licenses and 24/7 technical support for public safety mobile wireless communication software at a sum not to exceed $46,280.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2365, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Innovation and Performance to enter into a third amendment to corporation and project agreement for the creation and operation of the Regional Data Center Agreement with Allegheny County and the University of Pittsburgh.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Second. Conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 2366, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Innovation and Performance to enter into a contract with CDW Government to provide ITSM system to license, implement, manage, operate, and deliver IT services to meet the needs of the city at a sum not to exceed $500,000.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. I think that's everything. I would now, announcement, next Tuesday, December 17th at 3:30 p.m. There will be a cablecast public hearing on Bill 2249 as it relates to zoning changes to 6320 Shakespeare Street. Now, members comments from members, starting with Councilwoman Smith.
I just really quickly want to offer our condolences to from council to the family of Jack Harrison. Jack Harrison was the first black deputy fire chief in the city of Pittsburgh, and he lived in Chartier City, and he just passed away. And he's survived by his daughter, who was a school teacher for Pittsburgh Public Schools, and so we want to offer the condolences to the family that's really given a lot to the city of Pittsburgh.
Condolences. Let's have a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. Our hearts and prayers goes out to the family. Anyone else?
Just briefly.
President Cross.
Just a quick comment on the Parks Bill 2403 and the legal opinion that came up from law. I think it's an important differentiation to make, that law did not grant authority to council, but rather law recognized the inherent authority of council already has in this decision, and I think that's a very important distinction. We carry a lot of power at this table, and as we work collectively together, we show the power that we have. And I just think that's a terribly important differentiation to make, that law, in that agreement, law recognized the inherent authority of this council. They granted nothing to us. They recognized the power we already have.
Other members of council,
I just
Councilman
want to
Coghill.
reiterate my comment from last week. I think that this council is going to need an attorney. Whether it be, I think this council is going to need an attorney, some representation moving forward. Not for this simple thing, but, you know, things that are bound to come up. And I guess I just have a question. If we decide to hire an attorney, where does those funds come from?
So that's easy. You want me to answer?
Yeah, there's a real history to that conversation.
So there's two different challenges. The money is not the challenge. There are two challenges, though. It's not neither are money. The first challenge is you have to be careful on how you do it, because our law department represents the city of Pittsburgh. So you don't want to set up a competing alternative version of the law department that speaks for the city of Pittsburgh. So you want to be very careful that if you create some legal services for council, that it doesn't come in conflict with our legal, so then we would have competing legal opinions. I don't think you want to do that. That's the first problem. The second problem, which is equally problematic, is that even though it seems,
she has a law background.
even though it seems that a lawyer could answer our questions, really municipal law has so many different areas of specialization that whoever you hire will only have expertise in one of those issues, right? So that if we hire someone who's expert in real estate, but something comes to us that is arbitration related, or come to us we would not have the expertise. So then the question would be then, is it better for us to hire a firm? So that if you hire a firm, then you have access to 6 or 7 lawyers, and you pick the one that is. So those are the two. I'm not saying the answer. I'm saying those are the two challenges we have. So it's not money. We could tomorrow put in place funding for an attorney. The problem is, I think, the fundamental problem. And so the other thing is, President Cross and I can both tell you the history of that, right? So there was a discussion of whether putting an attorney for the council, because the charter does call for us to have legal representation, and we can get it. The question is whether that person should be housed in the law department and be at BRs, or BRs separately from the law department, but then I think that would prohibit them from giving us legal opinions other than talking to us. You know, we can hire a lawyer just to talk to us, but they couldn't really issue legal opinions. Those are the two things to talk about. Those two things as to where to put them at, what their power is, and then get someone who can figure out a way to get us expertise in all these range of things. So
can I say something to that?
So that's the question. The third thing that Councilwoman Smith does remind us, we do have a lawyer on the floor, though. We do have a licensed attorney already on the floor that we could use for some of this stuff, and that's Kelly Seaborn Ware. She is actually a licensed attorney already on the floor. We actually had 2. There's probably one of the greatest Pittsburgh municipal minds on the floor, believe it or not, in Councilwoman Harris's office. She just doesn't say much, but she's actually one of the most insightful legal minds in the city, sitting in Councilwoman Harris's office. And so there are some people around.
No, I agree. We could use some of those people, but I also think that we don't even have to pay for another person. I think we have universities here with amazing law students that we could use too, for any type of law. So whenever we have an issue that differs, then we can go to those folks too. I mean, I'm not always in support of spending the dollars when we have that talent right here. We tout our universities all the time, but we use them very seldom when things like this arise. But I do think that we do definitely need to talk to somebody. So I think maybe Councilwoman Gross, yourself, and I should schedule a meeting with some of the law people some of the people that Reverend just mentioned, and with some of the law students, and figure out ways that we can address some of this stuff. But I really think that we're in good shape. I think that I think our opinion from our law department gave us a lot of power. I think it clearly states that the council was really going to oversee this, and if we choose not to allocate that money to, the organization that lobbied for this, that's up to us. And so I think that it would have behooved them to really work with us in our communities and to make us feel comfortable with the process during the time rather than after. But I think that there's definitely members here that are talking about what we need to do and how we have to hold people accountable for what they promised the public.
Any other conversation? Mr. Clark.
So I've already been talking to a few attorneys. I'm just waiting really to get the okay, and a check from our, but I will say this, we can hire an attorney. This could be a specialist. This is over taxes. I mean, most attorneys specialize in one form or another of law. I'm not saying let's retain an attorney to have steady for forever. I'm saying through this tax
you're talking about for the park tax.
The other thing is our attorneys in-house, I feel like we put them at odds. I mean, I feel, being that the administration was behind this effort, and, I just feel like we need an independent outside attorney as far as that goes. And that was it.
Yeah.
I'll bite a little bit. I've had this conversation since I've been a member of council, right? About the law department. I've had this member from this conversation back when Doug was here, and I'll just push back because of just what I know. The solicitor is in a unique position in that they do not belong, they are in the administration, but they do not belong to the administration. We are also their clients. They are equally as being their clients responsible to council as they are the mayor. They're the only department that has that kind of dual responsibility. And in my dealing with the law department, I will defend their objectivity. I have not found them to be biased. I may not always agree with their opinions, but I have not found them, to be compromised. In fact, just the opposite. So we can talk about it.
I think the opinion that they just issued
confirms that, right? Confirms that.
Right.
The other thing is, and the other thing I'll bite on is this. I have no intention, zero intention, -0 intention of handing over $10 million of the taxpayers' money to any non-elected group of people. I have absolutely no desire, no interest, not going to do it, not in any world. So I'm just telling you, I'm not doing that. So if you think
that makes 5 of us. So
if you think there's a world, if someone thinks there's a world where we're going to hand over $10 million to an unelected group of people to do what they think is in the best interest of people, especially minority groups, of which they are not necessarily the most diverse group of people in the world in the first place.
I said that during the public hearing.
If you think that's going to happen, you're in a different planet, because I guarantee you that's not going to happen. So, I say that I'm not sure, because I'm sure we're not doing that. So I don't know you're going to need a legal opinion, because there's some things we're not going to do. That one, this council is not doing. I guarantee you we're not doing it. So I shouldn't say I guarantee you I'm not voting for it, right? So let me say it that way. I'm not voting for that. And so
The problem is, what is that for me?
Well, I guess what I'm saying to you is we will create it. No, we will create that. This council will create what that looks like, right? And I am of the belief, I said before, trust but verify. I'm of the belief that the vast majority of the parks belong to the city, right? And you'll have to convince me that the city is not the best arbiter of these resources, right? And
Rev,
so,
we've been saying that for the past 3 months.
well, as we had this conversation privately, right?
Yes, we
I told
did.
You, I told
Yes,
you.
we did. Yes,
I
we
told
did.
you I would wait till now.
Yes, we did.
to
So,
come
but
out
I'm thankful that you are.
I told you we'd wait till now to come out with my belief about this, right? I have serious questions as to how we move forward. I am confident, though. I am supportive of the parks. I am confident that working collaboratively with the administration, we can create a process that is transparent and fruitful for every resident and is equitable to all people and to both sides of the river, all sides of the river. And I will be, I will be with you in this conversation, okay?
Thank you.
I need a motion to, I think we're all here today, I need a motion to approve the minutes and adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Need a second? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned.